Okay, here's the deal. I have so many books. And I was really thinking, you always hear about those people that just keep collecting their books. They want to collect. They have like 6 copies of their favorite books. But like, I don't necessarily think that that's me. I realized that I want to be that one that has read every book in their library. So every book that I buy just makes my entire life more difficult. It puts that goal farther and farther away. So the new theme for the rest of the year is to try and read books on my shelf, which I've actually been doing a very good job of this year. I think I've only read a few that I have purchased, but I need to read these. I need to start cracking because I've only gathered them in the past couple years. So I think originally it was mostly read and I have overwhelmed myself. I've given myself too big of a to-do list. So, as a symptom of my mental illness, let's finally read something on my shelf. I was like trying to figure out how I could make this fun. And I just like didn't want to have to pick. I didn't want to have to pick what books I was going to read next, because when I think about doing that, I will get decision fear over that, because what if I could have picked a better book? What if I could have known my mood better so that I would have picked a book that was more suited to my mood? What if I could have known the themes of my life better so that I could have picked a book that went along with the themes of my life? I don't know. I don't want to pick anymore. I'm tired. I picked all these books when I bought them. So, I'm going to let a random number generator, I'm going to let that pick for me. How this is going to work, I have this bookshelf, I have this stack of things that count as part of this bookshelf, and then I have another bookshelf in the other room. I'm going to get a random number between 1 to 300. We'll find the book on here. If I've read it, I'll get another number, but I have to read the first 3 books that I haven't read from this random number generator, and we will see how it goes. That's kind of how I'm hoping to do it. Okay, let's do number 1, 300. Just gonna do one at one time. 81. Okay, 81 is my first number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like a typewriter, you know? 61. 77, 78, 79, 80, 81. Oh, stop. I've literally been wanting to pick this up. This is Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. Ooh, yay, I'm excited. Wow, I love not making decisions for myself. This is great. Generate 185. I'm gonna math this, and you can fact check me in the video, because I'm 100% sure Wicked Fox was 200. So 199, 198, 197, 196. 186, 185. More Treasures of the Sky. I actually don't know what this one's about, but I have had this recommended to me multiple times before, so 316. We're using the same logic. Wicked Fox, 200. Okay? $314, $315, $316. I've already fucking read this. Yeah, it's the second book of A Wrinkle in Time, and I've already read that whole series. So this doesn't help us. 236. For the billionth time, Wicked Fox is 200. Thank God. I remember that Wicked Fox is 200. 235. 236. You're kidding. You're kidding. Wait. No. But we're gonna recount. 2, 33, 34, 35, 36. Stop! You're kidding me. Okay, maybe I spoke too soon. Before I was like all excited. Okay, oh man. Well, I guess it's time to read House of Leaves for the first time. Welcome back. Welcome to my random number generator journey. I started Atlas of the Heart and Four Treasures of the Sky the same day yesterday. I got into them a little. I'm about 50 pages into it. And the thing is, okay, it's told very linearly, except for the very first chapter. And I just wish that she hadn't done that, because the way that she pulled that one single moment out of time and placed it right at the front, I just feel like it pulled me out of the rest of the climbing action. I spent all of the pages of introduction to our main character thinking about what happened in the first chapter instead of learning about the life of the main character that we were learning about. I just feel like that choice was a little weird because it's like a one-off choice. The rest of the story is not non-linear. It just like, it would have been so much better if there had just been a natural build-up from 0 to 100. But other than that, I'm really enjoying it. It's a historical fiction, which are not my favorite. I'm really enjoying the information, the learning about calligraphy in here, which I think is what it's going to end up being about. So I also really like this author's nature descriptions. I feel like nature descriptions so often fall into like Walt Whitman, into like spending like 8 pages talking about one tree, and I get bored with those types of things. But the cohesiveness of the nature descriptions in here with the plot, like it's very well described, because the setting is so essential to the way that the main character perceives the world. I've been liking the writing style a lot. So at the same time, I did pick up Atlas of the Heart. My goal these past couple of years has been to break my big book fear, but I think I inadvertently broke my nonfiction book fear instead. I used to be so scared of nonfiction books. I used to feel like there was such an obligation to sit down and study them, which is what I do. I use my tabs and I really like to go in depth. But I think that I realized that studying is so different than reading. So I have to approach the two different tasks with a different mindset if I'm going to be successful with them. So if I want to read, I gotta pick up something like this, that I'm just sitting, I'm reading, I'm not thinking about anything, I'm immersing myself in this fictional world. But when I pick up something like this, it's time to study. It's time to think about the sentences. It's time to pull the tabs out so that you can remind yourself of parts that struck with you. It's time to take notes, to absorb the information better. And I think because I was approaching it like reading, I was not getting the same result. But now that I don't approach it like I'm reading a book anymore, I'm studying a book, it has enhanced my experience so much more. It's a different feeling, it's a different task, it's a different type of enjoyment. It's just so interesting that books can give you multiple ways of enjoyment. My nonfiction fear is broken. I have more nonfictions on my shelf than I would have ever thought in my whole entire life. This random number generator really gave me the array, really gave me a good variety to pick up. As you can see, I have yet to pick up House of Leaves because I am still very scared. We will have to work our way up to that. Maybe by the time I finish these two books, I will have done that. I've yet to do so now, though. This is Four Treasures of the Sky. It's a historical fiction about a girl who's kidnapped from China and brought to America during the Chinese Exclusion Act. It's so well written. Jenny Zhang, she has the perfect writing style for historical fiction writing. It's this combination of these beautifully created sentences with this imagery that evokes history, even though it's being talked about in the present tense. Her writing just, it says so much, it says so much without being drawn out, which is, I always admire because that is something that I am almost incapable of. There are so many layers to her sentences. She can say something that has so much weight, and it's like a 10-word sentence. It's crazy. She really was doing the dang thing. This book is beautifully written. It's very sad. The way that she's writing about the perspective of a woman, because the main character is a girl, a 14-year-old girl, and obviously girls have never been treated well. So it talks a lot about sex and power and men's perception, but also about language, because the main character's a lover of calligraphy. It's often focused on the ways that things are communicated, the ways that interpersonal relationships are communicated. It's such a person-centric story. It's very sad coming of age perspective of how do you decide who you are when who you are is not accepted, which is most of history. But I am really enjoying it because of how well written it is. I think in somebody else's hands, the same story could have been boring, but Jenny Zhang is just executes this storytelling so completely perfectly. I knew it was gonna be sad. I knew the second that it was a historical fiction that it was gonna be fucking sad. And it was fucking sad. And I'm fucking sad about it now. I need to go cry. That's sad. I'm so sad. let me just explain why I'm scared of this book. I have been avoiding this book because of the, like, massive implications that come with reading it. I've had people say that it has changed their lives, that they've never forgotten about it, like, a mastery in writing. Like, there is so much to say about this book, and it scares me to dive into that world, but I guess the universe wants me to read it, so it's finally time to pick it up. Yay! Like, how do you even read something like this? Like, it's all nothing. It's nothing here. There's nothing here. How did... The number of times that I flipped through this book, try and make some semblance of it, and have not been able to, is the number one deterring factor to me picking this up. I just need to get over it. I know, but what is the book gonna do to me? Oh my god. What did I know then? What did I know now? At least some of the horror I took away at 4 a.m, you now have before you, waiting for you a little like it waited for me that night. Only without these few covering pages. Fuck you. Stop reading my brain. I've never been reading 2 places in a book at once. That's a summary of the experience so far. I am enjoying it, though. It is strange. A type of book I've never encountered before, for sure. It's almost like it's telling 2 different stories. They're being told at the exact same time. So it brings a lot into the question about time. It also brings a lot into question about space, and the relation between all of those things. But there are paragraphs that make me fall asleep, if that makes sense. So, like, maybe like 95% I've really enjoyed. But then there have been these paragraphs that, like, the way that the descriptive run-ons just keep running on, like, literally lull me to sleep. I'll, like, find myself like, ugh. And then I try and read the paragraph again. There have been paragraphs I've had to read like 5 times. But, like, I guess that's kind of the point of some of it. It's like spooky, scary, crazy, ooh, quirky, cute, and not like the other books. It's almost like a long form art piece. It's its own thing, all on its own. It's so heavy. It's just like, I think it looks so cool and it looks great, and I understand why it is the way that it is. It's so heavy to read. I like it. It's so uncomfortable to sit down with it. Like, there are very few comfortable positions in which you can lay while you're reading this book. Maybe that's done on purpose so that you're inherently uncomfortable in some way, shape, or form while you're reading this book. I have no idea. But I wasn't even gonna tab it because it's like more effort, but like then I just had to because it is very well written. I do quite enjoy the philosophical analyses that I have found here so far. So we'll keep it going. There's a bunch of little footnotes. But there's a bunch that say, like, you see a later chapter. Am I being too linear by not following the footnote to the later chapter? Because I'm going to get to the later chapter anyway. I was following the footnotes to the appendix, but somehow I feel like I'm reading it slightly wrong, but also I don't care enough to put in the effort to read it in what I think is the right way. Because this thing is heavy. This is like what you're getting with this book. It's currently analyzing labyrinths as a concept. It talked about, like Daedalus, and it talks about how a labyrinth can be viewed from multiple perspectives, because you could view it from its external view, or you can view it from
your, pathway. Like, it just talks about all the different ways that a labyrinth is unstable in concept. This says, it cannot be forgotten that the process posed by exhaustion, a result of labor, is an inextricable part of an encounter with a sophisticated maze. In order to escape, then, we have to remember we cannot ponder all paths but must decode only those necessary to get out. We must be quick and anything but exhaustive. Unfortunately, the infractuosity of some labyrinths may actually prohibit a permanent solution. More confounding still, its complexity may exceed the imagination of even the designer. Therefore, anyone lost within must recognize that no one, not even a god or another, comprehends the entire maze, and so therefore can never offer a definitive answer. Brain is thinking. It reads like some old philosopher's 1300 page book. Yes, I'm talking about you, Sart. I am 115 pages in, and I am about to begin the squares, which is something that I've always seen whenever I flip through this book. So we'll see. We'll see. Nope, I've fallen into this book and I can't get up. Why? Bro? Why come? So I am 300 pages into this about 600 page book. Things are really kicking up. I've ignored phone calls from my boyfriend and from my best friend. I've also ignored texts from Facebook Marketplace about things that I wanted to buy. I cannot put this thing down. I'm hooked, and it only takes over 100 pages to get there. I'm a big fan of a slow burn when it's done well, and this one is done so extremely well. I also still don't understand the incorporation of sex in this book yet. It gets pretty graphic, not like Sarah J. Maas level or whatever, but it'll get pretty intense and descriptive. Specifically about sex scenes, one night stands, or things like that. And I'm not quite sure what their purpose is yet, but I feel like they have a purpose. There's just no way that these, I guess, like sexual episodes that this character is having don't have some sort of like incorporation into the story. I'm kidding. I've been enjoying it quite a lot. I've tabbed the shit out of it. And I'm finally to the parts that are like this. And so it's much easier to get through and read. The first 100 all like that. But intermittently there's been, empty pages as I've gotten through it. That makes the thickness and the reading level of it much more sustainable. It's pretty spooky, it's pretty Halloween-y. I started reading it earlier in the day today because I was worried that I was going to get scared, but I haven't gotten actually scared yet. We'll see how I feel when I have to go to bed all alone in the dark in my apartment because my boyfriend is at work tonight. because I have a feeling that we might have a problem with it then. But we're going to keep ignoring that, and we're going to keep reading. It's really lucky that I pulled both Atlas of the Heart and House of Leaves at the same time, because I feel like they are exact opposites of each other in a way. House of Leaves is so ungrounding, make you question your reality type of thing. And Atlas of the Heart is the exact opposite, and it's helping give you tools to define your reality. And so I feel like whenever House of Leaves makes me feel too crazy, I will go to Atlas of the Heart. I was kind of paranoid after it, just because like the weird philosophical points that House of Leaves makes just fills in the extra space in your brain. So like when your mind is just wandering or something, suddenly that's there in the empty space instead of nothing, which is interesting. Also makes you feel a little crazy. Also makes you feel a little paranoid because your brain's going. And so picking up Atlas of the Heart is such a gentle hug after that experience. I think that they are actually matching up very well, as Brené Brown describes the internal world, and House of Leaves describes the devolution of the internal world. I don't know, it's a very interesting juxtaposition to read at the same time, which I never would have thought of without this challenge. So there you go. Read House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski and Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown at the same time. I just need to point out something to you. I'm not finished with it yet. I still have maybe like 250, 300 pages. But I want to point something out to you if you've read this book. So you see this gap right here in my tabs? That gap is from when they're inside the house. So it's like, it's crazy to think about, because that gap is like, the house even ate my tabs. It devoured my tabs even. Am I thinking too much into this? Or am I thinking just the right amount? It is 12:30 a.m. and I work in 7 hours. But I'm so close to being finished. Close to knowing the end. I will finish it tomorrow. I did it. I feel so accomplished. One, because this has been on my TBR for so long. And two, because I did it. Like, it wasn't too hard. I didn't make it too hard. And I finished the whole thing. Unlike any other reading experience that I've ever had. So cool. And executed so well.
What happens when we feel two competing emotions at the same time? Can two seemingly contradictory thoughts be true? Welcome to being human. Competing emotions and contradictory thoughts are messy and can feel uncomfortable, vulnerable, even irritating. But it's important to remember that the push and pull is a reflection of our complexity, and if we're willing to stay with it and stay curious, complexity is one of our greatest teachers. The problem starts when we don't have the skills or experience to tolerate the uncertainty and ambiguity, and we give into cravings for neat, mutually exclusive categories. There's nothing more limiting than tapping out of tension and oversimplifying the thoughts and feelings that have the power to help us understand who we are and what we need. I'm truly and honestly a changed woman. I picked up this challenge expecting not difficulty. I picked it up expecting to just read 3 books off my shelf finally. But the juxtaposition of these random books picked was just so interesting, First, I finished 4 Treasures of the Sky, which I really enjoyed, and was definitely a step out of my comfort zone because I'm not normally a historical fiction lover. They're always really sad because, in case you haven't noticed, history is sad. This was no exception, but it was also beautifully written. Like, part of this book is about calligraphy, And that's the best way that I can describe this writing style, is the writing style feels like calligraphy looks. And to pull that off is so impressive. I think that she did a phenomenal job. It's basically a historical fiction written and based on an actual historical event that happened in Idaho during the Chinese Exclusionary Act. Well, you opened my door, so I get to pick you up and embarrass you. I do have a couple of issues. There's like a conjointed feeling in the very beginning that makes the first like 100 pages kind of hard to get through. It just like makes it hard to originally get into, but then once the ball got rolling, it was super enjoyable. And also, like, I'll have to like read, maybe there's some cultural significance that I'm not aware of, but there's a character in here named Lin Dayu who helps out the main character, and I don't really understand her placement in this story. I don't really understand why her interactions are written the way that they are. I just think it's unclear as to her relevance to the history and the fiction. There were just, like I said, a couple of elements that could have been left out, and the book probably would have still been just as good. But it's not made worse for their edition. It's really not that much of a criticism. Like, just for me personally, there was such a flow to this book that when the flow was so aggressively disrupted by these weird elements, the themes here come to peak just as the involvement of the characters, because in all reality, this is about a fictional character that participates in a non-fictional event. So it's very character driven. Despite there being a lot of things that are happening, it's very much driven by the development of our main character. As somebody who doesn't normally tend to like writing like that, I really appreciated this for what it was, because there's like an amazing conversation here about names. What is a name? What does it mean to have a name? What does it mean to change your name? What does it mean to require your name to be changed? And ponderances on identity through that method of talking about names and the meaning of them, both in American society and in Chinese society. A really great read. Definitely gonna stay on my shelf because I think it's so well done. It's just so beautifully done. Trigger warnings for sure. There's a lot of violence, especially racially motivated violence. If you're really into beautifully written, character-driven stories, I think that you could really enjoy this, especially because the historical aspect is not heavy. Like I said, it's about the character and her experiences, and her experiences reflect the history, but it's not necessarily about like historical events. There's so much that you could say about this crazy book. It is unlike any book that I've ever read before. It's so, and I know everybody says that, but it is true. It is a pushing of the boundaries of what reading is, of what a storytelling is, like into something that I think is very not often explored. It's almost like a movie. It really does almost feel like a movie while you're reading it, despite the fact that it's so long. There are just so many layers and elements to this book that all come together so cohesively. It does really feel like like some type of scientific paper. Oh man, it's just so well done. Anybody out there who is looking for the most unusual reading experience that you could ever have, and is also willing to put up with a dense book, pick up House of Leaves. It is dense, so if density in reading is not your thing, it's probably not going to be your thing. But man, this just blew me away because it was just so enjoyable to read. Every point or evolution in the story made the story even more and more interesting. The build and the tension of the fear in here was so perfect to read during October. I read this and finished it during the first half of October, and it was a perfect Halloween read, especially beginning of Halloween read, because it's not necessarily overtly about things that scare you, but it's about those things in the background that lay in wait for you when your brain is not thinking about things, when your brain's not distracted. It's those fears that lay behind all of that distraction, like empty spaces and silence and lack of sight or lack of visibility. It's a monster, but like 5 stars. Truly, it has to be 5 stars. And I'm trying to decide if it's a new favorite book or not. I think that there's so much contained in here that I can't really tell. Like, I'm gonna have to read it again if I want to know if it's actually a favorite book, because the first read through, I feel like I barely scratched the surface of what can be provided in this reading experience. Like, I feel like it can be read over and over and over again, and you will think different things each time and discover different elements. It is masterfully done. Like, the attention to detail in this story, that's why it's so dense, because there is so much attention to detail. Everything is intricately placed, like a one-to-one diorama. It's a whole world in here, just like the houses, which is just so cool. Every layer of it is cohesive with the concept of the book itself. Every idea in it is cohesive with the true themes of it. Man, it's just done so expertly. Obviously, I really don't think that this is a book for everybody because of how dense it is. Like, some people are just not gonna care, but I cared, and it was fantastic. And like, despite it being dense, the differing formats and the changing of the pages, like, it does help with the density. Like, it helps break up large portions of text and intense scenes and things like that. Like, it really does a good job at still creating a flow despite its massiveness. And finally, we have our lovely Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown. This is the only Brené Brown that I've ever read, but I have heard that this is her in her element. This is her like best work, best writing, simply because this is the stuff that she knows the most about. And I totally get that after reading this, because this is like, it's like an atlas. It's like an encyclopedia, a dictionary of emotions, basically. And so there were points where these emotions would not be described in as much detail as I was wishing she would go into. And I think I get it, because like, as a scientist, you can't explore everything all at once. Like, Brené Brown has not had the lifetime to explore every single emotion. So the emotions in which she did have her own personal research and experiences with were so wonderfully done that sometimes the emotions that she didn't necessarily have as much to say about left me feeling a little disappointed or a little lackluster. And it wasn't so much so that it made it not useful, but like, as somebody who's like a studier of love, and then I get to the love section in here and it's like 1.5 paragraphs, and all she says is that it's about human connection and that we need human connection. I get it. She hasn't studied love. That's not one of her things. She talks a lot about gratitude. She talks a lot about leadership. She talks a lot about anger, because those are the things that she's been able to study throughout her career. So those are the things that she has the direct experience with. So I totally get it. It did make it slow to read at times. Like I said, it's more of like a dictionary of emotions. So I think maybe after her first read through, it's more so to like refer back to at later dates. Like, you're like, I don't know what I'm feeling, and you go to the book and you try and figure out what you're feeling. It doesn't necessarily feel like something that you read from cover to cover. It's more so a tool to be used during moments of non-understanding, during times when you don't know how to express yourself, to give you the opportunity to express yourself, which I think that it does a really great job at that. I think it's wonderfully built and curated for that. And she really talks about, like, I think the most important thing in here is that she talks about how important language is. if she's, you know, done research that has shown that without the proper language to communicate what we're feeling, we don't have the capability to process things and move forward. So that's what she tries to do here, is give people that language, the basic building blocks, so that they can begin to coherently understand themselves. And I think she does a great job with that, especially with understanding how emotions can connect and how two things can be simultaneous at once, or things that seem similar are actually different, like just the different ways that all of these emotions interact with the self. She does a particularly great job at communicating that, which, despite the disjointedness of like the levels of her explanations of different emotions, the flow of it is done really well because of how she connects the emotions with the emotions that help and the emotions that hinder. And I think that any type of person could benefit from reading this, despite it being literally one of the most inconvenient book sizes to ever read. But it's pretty, you know, beauty is pain. Never used that in reference to a book before. If you're looking for a gripping and emotional and evocative self-help book, I don't necessarily think this is what you're looking for, because this is not gripping like that. I'd probably give this a 4 out of 5. That is Atlas of the Heart. Oh, random number generator. Dear Mr. Random Number Generator, what a ride you took me on. What a ride. That's really what it was. I mean, and I guess that's kind of what you would expect with something that's random. A journey, which I feel like I definitely went on. You just gotta have faith in your own book taste. I think most people probably wouldn't buy a book if they didn't think that they were gonna like it for some reason. It just really took me out of my comfort zone in multiple ways. There's not always a right time for a book. I think that was something that I got so hung up on with House of Leaves, and I had never picked up House of Leaves yet because I just was like, oh, it's not the right time. It's not the right time. It's never gonna be the right time. It just like time just is. And to put off reading a book that you might enjoy because it's not the right time, I think I'm learning for myself, is a little bit silly. My video that I did, looking for a 5-star read, one of my favorite videos I've done, I learned a similar lesson in that like, you can't wait to read the things that you're excited for. No type of time period is better than another for you to open yourself up to another perspective. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe. I'd love to see you back here because I have fun here. We have fun here. Come check out what we got going on, and I hope you have a good night.